The War Council chamber aboard the Zetherian flagship Eternal Dominion hummed with the collective consciousness of 17 galactic species. Holographic projections illuminated the obsidian walls, displaying star maps and tactical data that had taken centuries to compile. At the center of it all stood High Commander Vexthor, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting light into 1,000 colors as he addressed the assembly. "The humans," he announced, his voice resonating through translation matrices, "have rejected our ultimatum. They refuse to surrender their outer colonies. Therefore, the Galactic Coalition formally declares war on the Terran Federation." A murmur of satisfaction rippled through the assembled delegates. The humans were a young species, barely 3 centuries into space travel. They had no ancient weapons, no evolved combat instincts honed over millions of years. They were, by all calculations, insignificant. What the Coalition didn't know was that humanity had been waiting for this moment with something approaching relief. Mia Chen stood on the observation deck of the TSS Defiant, watching the enemy fleet materialize from slipspace like a swarm of metallic locusts. She was 26 years old, a tactical officer who had spent her entire career training for a war that military historians insisted would never come. Humanity had been peaceful for nearly 200 years, focusing on exploration and diplomacy rather than conflict. But Mia's grandmother had told her stories passed down from generations who remembered when Earth fought Earth, when survival meant being better at violence than the next tribe, nation, or ideology. "They're beautiful," said Ken Okafor from beside her, his dark eyes reflecting the approaching armada. Ken was the ship's combat AI specialist, a genius who could make machines think in ways their creators never intended. Symmetrical formations, predictable patterns. They fight like a dance. "We fight like a bar brawl," Mia replied, and she was smiling. Ken looked at her, saw that predatory grin, and felt something ancient awaken in his own chest. "You think we can take them?" "I think," Mia said softly, "that they have no idea what they've done." The first engagement occurred near Proxima Station. The Coalition fleet arrived with overwhelming force, 300 warships against humanity's 47 defenders. Vexthor watched from his command throne as his forces moved into position with practiced precision. "Target their command vessels," he ordered. "Disable their communications. Standard subjugation protocol." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The human ships didn't retreat. They didn't form defensive formations or attempt negotiation. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Coalition fleet at speeds that should have torn their hulls apart. And then they did something unprecedented. They improvised. The TSS Defiant fired its main railgun, then immediately vented atmosphere from its port side, using the explosive decompression to spin the ship in a maneuver that avoided 3 incoming missiles. Before the Coalition could adjust, Mia had ordered the ship's cargo bay doors opened, ejecting a cloud of ball bearings and scrap metal directly into the path of pursuing fighters. "That's not a sanctioned tactic," one of the Zetherian tactical officers exclaimed. "It's not even a tactic," Vexthor muttered, watching in disbelief as the debris cloud shredded an entire squadron. "It's chaos." Ken's voice crackled over the tactical network, coordinating with the other human ships. "Gold 3, try that thing we talked about at the bar last week. Phoenix 7, remember that stupid movie we watched? Yeah, do that. Defiant Actual, I'm giving our missiles some personality. Watch this." The missiles that launched from the Defiant didn't follow ballistic trajectories. They corkscrewed, they looped, they shut off their engines and drifted before reigniting at random intervals. They behaved, Vexthor realized with growing horror, like they were thinking. "They're treating this like a game," he whispered. He was wrong. Humanity wasn't treating it like a game. They were treating it like what they'd always been best at: survival through unpredictability, innovation through desperation, and victory through sheer audacity. 3 hours into the battle, Mia's console lit up with damage reports. The Defiant had taken hits, lost 2 gun batteries, and had fires on 3 decks, but they were still fighting, and around them, the Coalition fleet was in disarray. "Their formation is collapsing," Ken reported, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "They don't know how to adapt. Every time they calculate our next move, we do something different." "Because we don't know what we're doing either," Mia laughed, the sound slightly unhinged. She was exhausted, terrified, and more alive than she'd ever felt. Execute random pattern Delta 6 whatever. Make something up. Delta 6 whatever isn't a real designation. It is now. The Defiant barrel rolled over a cruiser twice its size, launching every weapon it had at point-blank range before using the explosion to propel itself toward its next target. It was inefficient. It was wasteful. It was absolutely devastating. When the coalition retreat was called, Vexthor sat in his command throne, trying to understand what had happened. His forces had lost 87 ships. The humans had lost 12. The mathematics didn't support this outcome. They fight without honor, one of his officers said quietly. No, Vexthor corrected, his voice hollow. They fight without rules. There's a difference. On his main screen, he watched the human ships regrouping. They were damaged, limping, held together with what appeared to be desperation and spite. But they were dancing, actually dancing, their ships weaving patterns of celebration through the debris field. Inside the Defiant, Mia and Ken stood amid sparking consoles and emergency lighting, covered in soot and grinning like maniacs. We should probably feel bad about this, Ken said. We should, Mia agreed, but we don't. Think they'll try again? Mia looked out at the retreating coalition fleet, then at the battered but victorious human ships around them. She thought about her grandmother's stories, about every war humanity had ever fought against itself, and how those painful lessons had taught them to be adaptable, unpredictable, and absolutely unrelenting. They will, she said, and we'll remind them again why predators shouldn't wake up apex predators who've been pretending to be herbivores. Across the galaxy, humanity grinned and remembered. They had spent 2 centuries building a peaceful civilization. But evolution doesn't forget 10,000 years of survival instinct in just 200 years of peace. The coalition had declared war. Humanity had simply come home.